Strong Dana's.
It is the day that we're going to talk about an auction. Bradford Ferguson says he thinks that the right way to sell one of Tesla's products would be to auction at least the first. How many do you think? 10,000, 100,000? How many of these new products would you like to auction off?
Yeah, I'd say 100,000.
100,000. Okay. And this would be the Optimus. We would be, because how do you figure out what they're worth when they have so much value?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is, better than hiring somebody. Theoretically, it's going to do exactly what you tell it to.
Yeah, Elon says, he says it's worth a lot. I don't know if Wall Street totally believes him or like the TV analysts. I don't think they quite get it of what Optimus is worth. People are very skeptical about, high valuations, high numbers, um, like, tens of trillions in value for Tesla.
Right, right.
Um, so I think the best way to prove the value of the Optimus is to have an auction at first, because there's a lot of early adopters that would love to get their hands on one, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Tesla nerds either.
Yeah.
There's a lot of futurists that have a lot of money, like Peter Diamandis, or there's all the oil barons in the Middle East that Elon just met with, that would like to have an Optimus. Um, I'd say you have a blind sealed bid auction
Hmm.
where you're essentially offering to pay um, as much as you want for
Right,
however many you want.
right.
So if you want to buy one for $250,000, you can do that. Or if you want to put in, um, reserve your spot for 10 of them at $50,001. You can do prices right rules,
Yeah, yeah.
so that if it ever drops to 50,000 each, then you'd be first in line. And what Tesla can do is they can publish the results of the auction potentially,
Yeah.
as a way to prove it out. I
And that, well, so now if you're going to do this, you would want to wait until you have a really good video that shows what it can really do. I mean, it's got to be
Mhm.
able to weld, it's got to be able to, put studs in a wall or screw in stuff with a automatic screwdriver or even a regular screwdriver. I mean, you got to be able to show it doing lots and lots and lots of complex tasks
Mhm.
in order to maximize the value, right?
Yeah, you would definitely want to show it doing more. And my thinking on this is that Tesla would deploy a bunch to their factory, and then once they're full on that and they don't really have much more room for more Optimus, which I would kind of doubt. Uh, so I think they would add more factories or more lines at that point. But let's say they run out of need, they could then take the Optimus to their suppliers
Yep.
and give their suppliers a serious boost.
Yep.
Then after that, maybe they go to other manufacturers. So you could have other manufacturers do this auction before you even do it to the early adopter entrepreneurs and gadget nerds.
Right, right.
Then maybe you take it to the public after that. But I think, opening it up to the highest bidder is a pretty compelling idea. And again, they could, in transparency, they could publish, the results of the auction. They don't have to like give names, but like,
Yeah, yeah.
what was the demand at different ranges, and maybe if you're the winner, you get like lunch with Elon, kind of like Warren Buffett. If you donate a certain amount to charity or something, you get lunch with Warren. So maybe you get to meet Elon, maybe the first 1,000 get are signed by the Optimus team and the design team at Tesla. Yeah, you could do a lot of different things to kick it up.
Yes, some kinds of auctions, you have a situation where if you win the auction at a certain price, then you might be offered more at that price. So you
Oh,
only ask for one at 200,000 and you come back, well, because you were one of the winners, we'll now give you as many as you want at 200,000.
ooh, I like that.
So so we've talked a lot about value and the valuation that I think several people now kind of agree on is that for a $20 an hour worker, you could probably justify paying for 1 year's labor. You could probably justify paying about 400,000. Now that would be all in. You'd be basically just swapping money. So you'd get your
And you're
about
talking about like 5 years worth of work or
no
or
one year's
longer.
1 year's worth. So $20 worker is really $30. Multiply that times 2,000 hours. Now you've got 80 something thousand, I think it is, but it's 4 shifts, so that's 320,000. And I forget how we came up to 400, but it might be you don't need as much management, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, make it 320, make it 400, but somewhere
Mm.
around 20 to $25 an hour, you're going to be at 400,000 if you use it for 4 shifts. So I've always said the very first manufacturers that would be in line would be for somebody that had needed 4 shifts. But then I want to say it was Brian. That would be easy because there's two of them. Anyway, somebody came back and said, no, the high person, the manufacturer or business owner that would be paying willing to pay the most is the one who's going to get the value for the highest pay.
Hmm.
So maybe if roofers get $100 an hour or electricians, maybe even more than that, and you get 4 shifts out of that, now you'd be talking about 1,200,000 or a million, something well over $1 million
Yeah.
for 1 year's equivalent wages.
The first would be the radio tower climbers,
Yeah,
and window washers. Those do very well
yeah, yeah.
financially, but those are very dangerous jobs. So you could probably command a lot there. You mentioned welding, so
Right.
deep sea welding,
Deep
especially.
sea welding. There you go.
I don't know if they're going to be totally watertight or anything like that, but
Well, you put
you,
them in the same suit. They wear the same getup as,
welding for SpaceX, that's probably a very high pay, but I think that there's a lot of experience required there, um, and extended judgment, but that could be trained in
yeah.
Optimus.
Yeah. Well, now, according to what we're hearing now, you can train it just by having it watch a YouTube video of somebody who, just like you would if I was trying to fix something in my house that I've never fixed before, and I just watch a YouTube video and now I know how to do it. But Optimus would be way better than me at following even a YouTube instruction on how to put together a IKEA piece of furniture.
I think it's the stage is at it's very close if the video is in first person view.
Yeah.
So you have essentially the camera on your face and you got your arms in front of you, and it can do that. It can make that translation. But the next step for them is to take two videos where they have the human doing the task and they have cameras at different angles, and then they ask the AI to predict, fill in these missing pieces of data.
Right.
So that's the next step they're working on. So the call to action of their video was to bring more people on to help with that.
I see.
So like random YouTube video that are like in third person,
Hmm.
they're not there yet, but I think that's going to be coming soon within like a year or so. I think they could get there.
So we have one set of people that would be interested in the auction, which would be those who have an actual use case, and the highest value use case would be willing to pay the most money. Now, I didn't know this before, even though I've bought a lot of automation equipment over the years, but there's kind of a rule of thumb where people are willing to pay 1/3 of the first year's savings for it. And so even if we took that million and that we would still get down to 333,000, if
Hmm.
somebody was going to get $1 million worth of value the first year, they'd be willing to pay at least 333,000. Now there's also though, now you have to look at the other side of it, which is they don't have my competition doesn't have it side of the story.
Yeah.
So that could be worth more than just the normal automation purchase.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I think in general with pricing, Tesla is going to share the added value that Optimus brings. They'll share some of that with the customers. One benefit of Optimus though is reliability.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about it getting in a fight with its girlfriend or showing up hungover or late or sick, whatever.
Yes.
So you have the consistency advantage there.
Not going to be out in the warehouse grabbing a smoke of something legal or illegal.
Yeah. And we also got better clarity on why it's in a humanoid form factor.
Okay,
So we
I
have all
noticed.
these humans that can train it.
Yeah,
So we don't have like spiders that are going to train it on on roofing or spider or giraffes that are, working in a factory. It's humans
right.
that are going to show it how to do the tasks that we would have a human doing it.
Sure.
So the one of the key reasons why it's in a humanoid form factor is for training purposes to make it translate.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And the same and roughly the same height and weight as an average human. So all of those components still make sense in whatever position that it's going to be placed. What if the real highest purpose was in entertainment? Now, I've made the claim that people will still want to see a human baseball player. They're still going to want to see a human singer. They're not going to be, the robots are not going to take over to where we're going to be satisfied, even though that amazing robotic singer might have a perfect voice, an incredible
Mm,
voice. It's going to be a robot, and we're going to want the humanness as part of the show, if you will. However, if you reverse that, in early days, people might want to go see the amazing singing robot or the
yeah.
robot that can play the fiddle, at superhuman speeds. So, what do you think about that? And then that robot could be worth even more, way more.
My I went to the We Robot event,
Right.
and my first thought was that Tesla could take this show on the road and that people would come to interact with Optimus all over the country. And at that point, it wasn't like singing and dancing, but it was just a really cool event to be able to interact with the Optimus as is serving drinks or desserts or kind of like out and about and dancing. Um, and I think it's a positive for kids to see robots
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
inspire them to get into robotics and engineering. But I agree with you. There could be some applications with entertainment. But I agree with your other point too, is that, when you hear a remarkable singer and maybe they don't look the way you expect them to look, like to have that kind of voice, like
Yeah.
there's this added
Right.
pleasure that you get from hearing them, because that shock or that disconnect, you're like, wow, that's amazing. And with the robot, it'd just be perfect, and you just kind of maybe kind of expect it.
Now
But
we
maybe the dance moves, like just the crazy dance moves that can keep up over time, yeah,
right.
that would be really impressive. But
Now then we also have, I know 10, 20 years ago, we had these robotic, uh, 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 homemade robots that were going in and fighting one another in these arenas
mhm.
to see, who would be the best, the smartest, the most clever robot. So
Yeah.
might we end up having, you know, uh, uh, company versus company? So the Optimus versus the figure are, and competing to be the best boxer, the best wrestler. So we could now we would need some blood and gore though if we're going to make it, interesting.
Maybe some blood packets or something. I think for a while, Elon's going to keep it away from something that people could view as threatening. I think part of the reason for the design of the bot is that
Not threatening.
it's non-threatening currently. And there's a robot from Aptronic called the Apollo that looks, friendly and non-threatening. I think Elon will want to stay in that lane for a while, and not have people feel threatened by them. But I could see the attraction of that. I did see a video on X today where some of the robotic startups in China had some kind of exhibition, which was boxing,
Oh, they did.
boxing expedition.
I didn't see that. That's funny. Uh, well, and
So
of course,
mainly it's like eventually they stumble or lose their balance.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not like they get KO'd really.
So, we always hate to bring it up, but one of the big applications, and I guarantee you, if the United States doesn't do it, China will, or
Mm,
India will, or Pakistan will, or Iran will. Somebody's going to turn somebody's bots into military infantry or some kind of weapon.
yeah.
So I know Elon also doesn't want to do that, but he also seems to be the most patriotic person in the country, except maybe Trump. Um, and so if he's called upon and the country says, hey, we need some Optimi to start figuring out how the best way is to use them in a military situation, I don't think he's going to walk away from that call.
And maybe you also start with the first responders. So
Oh yeah.
with police, uh, with security, so around safety. If Boston Dynamics is going to play a role, they could have more of the fireman type robot, the firefighter, because it's, big and beefy. It could probably jump through a glass window pane, while carrying someone. It's huge, or at least the old one was. It's huge, and it, can do parkour and all that. Um, I I think you could start with the public safety and security side of it to um, get public acceptance of it.
So one of the other things that I've talked about in terms of the home use is as a trainer. And again, if we take it out of the home and now we put it in the baseball clubhouse or the football clubhouse or the golf, the golf training facility, etc., whatever sport you want to pick, and instead of just watching yourself on the video and seeing what your swing looks like, or
Mhm.
what your pitch looks like, your follow through, etc. Now you've got the bot who's standing right there in front of you and watching every aspect of what you're doing and giving you the best coaching advice possible, because it's a combination of all the best coaches of history
Mhm.
giving you that direction and advice. And you can probably play back the video to show you at the same time exactly what it's seeing. And it could come around and, for your golf swing or your baseball swing, it could come around and hold you in set, like a coach sometimes does, position you so that you make sure that you're doing. I mean, it seems like it would be like the ultimate coach.
Mhm.
That might be the highest value.
Yeah, I think that would work well. The only negative is it may not perfectly match human physique, so you may not want to learn 100% of the form from the robot, but it could help spot things, tell you to dip that shoulder or lock the elbow or whatever that is. And it could also, maybe place a finger on, one of your joints to help you, if you're supposed to keep something in check,
Yeah,
it can help do that, uh, so you can get your swing or your motion down. It'd be very patient.
yeah.
So if you're screwing it up, it'd be patient with you.
Now, if you put it on what's that mode that Grok has, that obnoxious mode or whatever they call it? I forget what the mode is called.
Well, I would call it the cursing mode
The
because all it
cursing
does
mode.
is like drop a bunch of curses.
So if you're using it as a coach, and you're depending on your mood, you might want it to
Yeah,
be really rough, really tough,
yeah,
like
you could do
really
that. Yeah.
give you because you've watched these movies where these
Mhm.
musicians or these gymnasts have these coaches that are just brutal and they
Yeah,
drive them to the top as opposed to the
yeah,
gentler approach. So you might be able to you could set the mode um, different ways on different days, depending on what
yeah.
you're trying to accomplish.
Maybe you need that extra push.
So now my next question is, and this is kind of just here we're having this little flyby video here, but why isn't anybody
And
doing
Randy's in Kauai right now,
this?
so hope the afternoon shower is that coming through.
The
So
afternoon
hopefully
the
that.
afternoon shower has just passed. It's kind of a little, still a little bit wild out there, but looks like we'll be seeing sunshine again shortly. By the way, this is not a tan. I'm a little tan, but this is actually just because I'm using the light that's available in my room,
Mhm,
and right now the light's not great.
mhm,
Okay, so now my next question is why haven't we seen any more movies about humanoid robots? We had several, what was that, 10, 15 years ago? Really good, well done
mhm.
movies that everybody still talks about. It would seem like there's a real opportunity right now for people to take what you and I just said and come up with all kinds of fictional possibilities that would be fun to do in terms of the future with robots as part of the scene.
Occasionally, I see some on various streaming services, whether it's Netflix or Hulu, where there's a theme with AI or with robots, and the evil billionaire, which I always think, they're taking some kind of jab at Elon.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing some of those, and a Black Mirror is a great series you can watch on Netflix, but it's about typically it's about like a dark futuristic themes where the something goes wrong in the future. Um, but yeah, as far as big blockbusters, um, we only mainly have like the Transformers, but
Right.
it's that's the good robots versus the bad ones. But I do think there's a lot more that could be mined there as far as having us think about the future. There's a lot of great books about
Okay.
robots in the future. Isaac Asimov
Right.
and
Right.
the various books he has on Foundation and Empire and I, Robot. Those are some good ones, and those explore a lot of ethics. So they can be a little heady at times.
Yes, yes. So speaking of ethics and speaking of heady and speaking of Asimov, which was one of Elon's core books that focused his attention early in his teens. Elon is now back at work, even though he was at the White House yesterday for a couple of meetings,
Mm,
2 days ago. But he's focused. I feel like we're seeing a lot more activity. Maybe that's just coincidence, but we've seen two or three Optimus videos. We've seen other kinds of. We've seen lots and lots of videos of him doing interviews, including at the factory yesterday, which I thought was one of the most important videos. Was the one with the guy from from what was the guy?
Sean Duffy
John
from
Duffy, right? DOT.
the
Yeah,
Department of
right.
Transportation in the US. Yeah.
So, do you think that Elon is, and we had, of course, the big article coming out yesterday from Atlantic magazine claiming that Elon is, on a
In the
downward
terminal decline or
terminal
something.
decline. So, so do you think Elon is currently purposefully trying to build his personal brand along with the Tesla brand at this point? Do you think there's a an intentional activity taking place?
Yes, but I think it's just a return to a focus on like Tesla and SpaceX and other things. Um, I thought his main work at Doge was around collecting the right talent, so recruiting the talent and just encouraging them to think about problems in certain ways.
Mhm.
So I thought it was more going to be to get them launched and to really attract world-class talent. And the people they have, like I would hire any of them in a second.
A second. No,
I
no.
don't think I can afford them after uh, once they're coming out of this. So,
So it's
um,
so it's a little, but it's a little hard to ignore, even for an optimist like me. Axios came out with their polling yesterday or the day before, talking about liberals having a 90% negative, impression of Tesla and Elon at this
mm,
point, even though middle of the overall number I think was up around 60%, but the liberals in particular were 90% negative. So it's a little hard to ignore, even though one could fathom whether it's impacting sales in the United States or not. Probably at least to some degree, yes. But wouldn't it maybe be wise for him to he's got the big brain, so put it to work systematically trying to rebuild the reputation.
um, yeah, I think it makes sense. Um, it- it- skeptically, I wonder if part of this is because I think they're gonna do something with pay package again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
oh, Elon's back. Let's pay him and all that. But um, I think Elon sees um the weakness. Troy is very negative on this quarter. So he's well below 400,000 deliveries.
Yep.
I thought Tesla would have bounced back above 400,000 for
Me
this
too.
quarter.
Me too. Mhm.
So I think there is some kind of issue. So it could be a supply issue, but I would have expected Tesla to disclose that if that was the case, whether it's lack of batteries or maybe there's some kind of parts issue with the new Model Y rollout. So maybe one of their suppliers is a little slow on the supply, which would really hurt them
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
they want to make like 300,000 Model Ys in a quarter. So if
Yeah. Yeah.
one of their suppliers is only at 200,000 or something like that, there's really nothing Tesla can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It only takes one meaningful part for them to hold up the total supply of Model Y worldwide.
Yeah.
I would I'd hope that they would disclose that because I think that would um that address a lot of fears around demand, a
Yeah.
potential demand issue.
Yeah. No, on
Because
the
it feels like Tesla, and I was asking this on X, is like it feels like Tesla is now an all-in bet on Robotaxi and Optimus, because like the auto business is struggling more than it should this quarter.
Yeah, I saw your post. I actually used it for, I think I used it for my conversation with Bradford. No, you're Bradford with Nicholas on Tuesday
Uh-huh.
night. I think that Elon told us a year ago, and he told us this week
Yeah, it's true.
that that's the bet. You know,
Yeah.
if you're going to play this stock, you should be bet. Now, the
Yeah. But
problem
at
is,
Investor Day 2 years ago, it seemed like we were getting all the above.
right,
We're getting auto business, we're
right,
getting Mega Pack,
right,
and we're getting Optimus and Robotaxi. So now it seems a bit more limited compared to Investor Day potentially.
right.
But maybe they prove us wrong. I think um many have given up on the idea of the compact. So maybe they suddenly surprise with the compact. I posited that they should not announce the compact until it is literally rolling off the line, and they wouldn't have any problem with people buying them.
Right,
So they wouldn't need to worry about it going unsold at first.
right.
And that way you're
Yeah,
reducing the amount of Osborning of
right.
people like canceling buying a 3-year Y that may have otherwise bought a 3-year Y.
Yeah. So the the potential right now, okay, so my take
Mhm.
is that it doesn't, for two reasons, it doesn't matter what the sales look like in the second quarter.
Yeah.
The first reason is because it's really all about Robotaxi and Optimus. But the second reason is because sometime in the third quarter, fourth quarter, we're going to have unsupervised, and that will be by far the most incredible feature that has ever been offered on a car in my lifetime. I think the second one in my lifetime, because I'm old, was air conditioning. So when
Hmm.
they're putting air conditioning in cars, that changed everything. And that was like in the late 50s, I think, early 60s, I think late 50s. And, things like automatic, that was kind of interesting. Some of the ADA stuff, some of the early ADA stuff was kind of nice, like cruise control and whatnot. But it
Hmm.
wasn't a must have. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's it. I think as also Nicholas pointed out the other day, the thing that people were constantly looking at was how many cylinders, how many horsepower, what's my
Hmm.
0 to 60, how fast is my little Nash Rambler? Oh, people are gonna a lot of the over 55 crowd is gonna go, oh, little Nash Rambler. I remember that. It's a song. It's a song. Look it up. Yes, a Nash Rambler was a little tiny. Anyway, never mind. No, seriously, for all of you out there that care, look it up. Listen to Little Nash Rambler. It was really a cute song, and it has application to what I just said. Okay, so, but this is different. This is on a completely different level, and therefore, once it's available, I don't think they'll be able to keep cars in stock. I don't see how they'll be able to keep cars in stock. Once you can get a car that completely drives itself, you're in the back seat. I don't see how they don't sell every car they can possibly make.
Yeah, I gotta think it would be a needle mover for sure. Um, I don't think people quite get it when you do have to somewhat pay attention,
Yeah,
even though you're just kind of paying attention at certain intersections or things like that. So, or like when it's pulling out into traffic, that's when you have to pay attention. But really, the most part, you don't have to pay a ton of attention right now. But you still get those comments. Oh, you still need to watch the road, or that sort of thing. But when you could literally have a thing that holds a laptop computer or something in your seat and be using it, that would be a really big deal.
or when you go around and you let your date into the passenger side, and then you get in the back seat. And then
Hmm.
it just, yeah, yeah, but I'm just saying, I think in general, I think that information will spread like wildfire. It's,
Yeah.
it's other things, it spreads. You have to advertise it. The fact that it's the safest car in the universe by a lot, you need to advertise that to get that point out there. Even the advanced ADA that it has now is still, it's not over the top crazy. but I think that will be over the top crazy where it will be a wildfire thing that the entire universe of drivers will know
Yeah,
about.
it's your own private driver that's always with your car.
Yeah, yeah, crazy stuff, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Now, last Thursday, you made me very happy. You said that my nutty idea that we could hit all-time highs in the next 4 weeks, and that time it was 5 weeks, now it's four,
Mm,
was possible. It was,
it's possible.
you were looking at
Yeah.
the technicals. So we've had this little setback by the bonds and the and what do you call it? The S&P, not the S&P, the
Yeah. I'd say there's been three setbacks.
three setbacks.
One was the Moody's downgraded the
That's what
U.S. bond rating. Another was there's been some cautionary commentators on robotaxi rollout from people who've been otherwise pretty bullish. So one is AI Driver on YouTube is a bit skeptical or cautionary about it. Thinks Tesla may need to limit things. Another has been, and I'm a big fan of James Dalma, but he's just urging people to be maybe calm about it. That may take a little time.
Mhm.
So you have some
But
people saying,
he was 100% sure that it'll roll out in June.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely, absolutely. But that maybe the growth takes a little slower than people expect. Um, So you have some of that, those people maybe urging a little caution in how excited we get. And then you had the whole, failure in the bond auction yesterday, which
Right.
I thought that that would be ignored for several weeks to a month.
Hmm.
So I thought it was negative that the market actually reacted to it.
Yeah.
So typically you have these auctions that are happening all the time
Yeah.
with US Treasuries, seemingly every day. Um, Half of them don't go as well as expected. The other half go better than expected, right? And the headline is always that it's some kind when it doesn't go as well, it's some kind of failure or tailing. They talk about tailing something or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And the market never really seems to react to it. I think part of the concern is you have this creeping up in interest rates, and that can affect the the value of future profits for growth companies that you're
Yes.
investing in.
Yes.
So I do think it's legitimate to be worried about rates creeping up, but I don't think it's going to become a reason for the market to sell off.
Well, so I thought that the Moody's timing was directed right at the Republicans, saying, you're working on the big, beautiful bill. You need to cut, 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 cut.
Hmm.
I thought that the bond response yesterday, there could have been people who kept their hand in their pocket who might have otherwise bought, again, as a signal, like,
Hmm.
we're going to go on strike here. It doesn't cost a big bond buyer that much to not buy on the bonds yesterday, right after the Moody's problem, and in the
Hmm.
middle of when the Republicans are, arguing about how much the cuts should be. So I
Yeah.
thought that might have been a strike. It
And,
seemed to it might have worked.
yeah. And you said you're a little behind today, so Congress did pass
Yes,
a big beautiful bill this morning. We'll see what the Senate does with it.
right. So and what we saw was that when Congress did pass it, we saw the bonds relax a little bit.
Hmm.
So or we got some selling, and so the yields came down a bit today. So, how are you looking at things technically right now in my little remaining 3 weeks and 4 days that I have to make all-time high?
I'm not seeing exuberance right now with the Tesla crowd. Maybe I'm not seeing all the all the posts I need to see, but it doesn't. We don't seem to be in as FOMO territory as we were 2 Wednesdays ago. So like around the night of May 14th.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I think there's some more room to run. I don't feel like while it's strong off the bottom, I don't feel like we've had this huge FOMO run. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's more just kind of gone back to maybe where it should have been.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
And yeah, if you look at versus the election, before the election went somewhat in the favor of Elon Musk.
Right.
Um, the other thing that wasn't in place yet was how good version 13 is.
Right.
We really didn't have clarity on robotaxi rolling out. So I think the stock deserves to be where it is just on those two factors alone.
And what about the DOT saying there will be a rule? I thought that would move the stock all by itself, but yesterday wasn't a very good day for the stock.
Yeah, I think that'd be very positive if that happened because there are some states that um are overly zealous on the regulatory side. I was kind of surprised when Elon talked with David Faber and he talked about, maybe after San Antonio that Tesla goes to California
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
And I feel like California is a little longer road. Maybe they go there because there's these four phases of approvals,
Right.
and the phase they're at right now is they're allowed to give rides but not charge for them. And they also have to have safety drivers in
Hmm.
the car. They're
Hmm.
forced to.
Hmm.
Then there's, steps up from there where things get a little more rigorous from there
Yeah.
as far
So,
as the regulation. And I feel like Texas and Florida would be easier roads to go through.
so to speak. So, I thought that maybe they were choosing San Francisco and Los Angeles because the people in those two areas are used to driverless cars.
Hmm.
They are already using driverless cars.
Well, that's.
Tesla has massive data in those two areas, and
Hmm.
Tesla has massive numbers of owners of Teslas in those two areas who are going to be more inclined to be first users.
Hmm.
So it seemed like those could be the reasons why, even though it might mean they got to rigorously take care of those other three steps anyway. So I don't know how much time they have to provide in each of these steps or how that all
Hmm.
works. But I don't think Elon would have said it if he thought he couldn't make it happen within a couple
Yeah.
of months. Yeah.
Maybe they may not be able to charge for it, but
Okay.
to get that activity going, you raised some really good points in that they have a huge built-in crowd in California. So I think that's really wise.
Yep. Yep. So I think that's a big part of it. Okay, so we're still gonna see all-time high then by June 15th.
Well,
Oh,
it's so
okay,
say you.
that's my call. And,
I
and
wouldn't be shocked if it happens.
okay,
So,
so here's a great question. If we hit, this is a lot of people are asking me this. If we hit all-time high by June 15th, let's say the rollout goes very well, because if it doesn't, we're not going to be at all-time high. Let's say the rollout goes out very well. There's no accidents or anything significant that happens. There'll be stuff, but nothing that really rocks anybody's, you know, messes things up. Do we sell on the news or do we continue up from there as we go?
yeah, there's another thing in the interview with David Faber I didn't quite like is Elon said it was going to be invitation only at first.
Yeah. Oh,
So I was a little disappointed by that. I thought it's going to be open to the public. That was my understanding based off of the earnings call in April,
yeah,
based off of what Elon said.
yeah,
So um, if it's invitation only, they could do a lot of influencers. I mean, they
yeah,
could literally have 50 to 100 or more influencers every day. So like the biggest influencers on YouTube and Instagram. Every day they could have it uh, do it in Austin.
And videos on videos on videos on videos.
Hmm. So, they could really potentially light a fire that way. But the only issue I see from that is, okay, so let's say I'm in Des Moines, Iowa,
Mhm.
or Indianapolis, Indiana. I see this cool video, but I can't suddenly get the robotaxi.
Right.
Um, but I guess I could buy a Tesla instead.
Yeah, you could. So, okay, so will there be a sell on the news? Okay, let me tell you my theory. I just came up with this theory the other day. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. There
Hmm.
will be a continuous catalyst after that. Because if we go from 10 to 20, that's a catalyst. So we go to 20 to 40. In other words, we have all these steps between now and the end of the year. 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 50, 100, and then you've got second city, that's another catalyst, third city, that's another catalyst, maybe fourth and fifth cities, another catalyst. Then you got unsupervised driving, that's another catalyst. I mean, you kind of almost have a constant draw. You almost have a constant like, oh, I better buy because now we're going to two cities. That's going to make the stock go crazy. So what do you think of that? What do you think about my crazy catalyst theory?
I think there's going to be waves, so I think there'll be opportunities to do some trimming and adding throughout where it'll just people get way over their skis or way too excited, and then it'll just have to pull back to kind of catch its breath and consolidate. Um, so I don't think it'll be a direct shot.
Well, there's never, well, I don't know. Tesla is one of the few companies that does sometimes do up and to the
It
right.
can be very streaky for sure. It's a very
Right.
streaky, unnatural stock.
Yeah.
So I actually studied that during 2020
Hmm.
and found that if you instead of measuring the moves on a daily basis, you measure them on a weekly or a monthly basis.
Wow.
And I found at one point when I calculated in 2020, it was moving on a 130 volatility on a monthly basis. But if you look at a weekly basis, it's around 115, but on a daily is only moving at 100.
Ah,
So when it was moving, whether up or down, it would move in these long streaks. So you're right, it can be very streaky and unnatural at times. And
that's,
this year is a good example.
yeah,
The At one
100%.
point the Nasdaq was down 11% and Tesla was down 48, 49%.
Right, right. Okay, so last question, completely off the rest of the subject, and that is Bitcoin
Hmm.
cracked through all-time highs. It's on its own streak. It's
Yeah.
from like 80,000 to 111,000 like in 2 days. No, okay. It's been a few weeks, but very fast.
Hmm.
I don't know that you pay a lot of attention to Bitcoin. We don't talk about Bitcoin much, but do you have any thoughts, impressions, etc., with regard to what's happening with Bitcoin, what's going to happen with Bitcoin? Anything at
I
all?
think there's room for higher over the next few weeks, along with the overall market, along with Tesla, other things. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin continue to go higher. My concern with uh, Bitcoin and I think there's some other stocks is that it seems like there's a lot of gambling, uh, borrowing that's going on, margin options, where it's people are just playing it far heavier with leverage and margin. So if there's ever a point where Bitcoin does drop,
Yes.
there could be a lot of people who just sell where they're not like Bitcoin maximalists. They
Yeah.
just want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
buy something and have it go up, and when it's no longer going up, then you could see recent buyers really turn on it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I was curious to get your take on that. So I'm only going to do one number tonight, so you can hang with me while I do one number. Okay.
All right, let me do the transition though. You ready?
Okay.
Let's get right to the number.
Okay. Tesla's up 0.34% in the aftermarket.
Unched. Basically unched.
Basically hunched 342.19, but it was as high as 345, 346 today. I thought we were going to go punch through 350. I'm not
If we
very,
do though, it might be dancing.
you think so. Brian Wong has a 365 that he feels is the technical number to beat. And then after that, there's like nothing. It's like right up to all-time high.
Mhm. Yeah, I could see that. It didn't seem like there was much trading between like 400 and 350, just from my memory of
Yeah. Yeah.
earlier this year. So there might, I think he's right. There may be a gap up there.
Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts today? Anything that you want to leave the crowd with? Like calling you because they want to be a rebellionaire. That'd be a good thing, huh?
Yeah, we work with Teslaonaires, so people who have a concentrated position in Tesla stock. Um, if that's not you, we don't like encourage people to do that. That has to be your thing already. And what we think right now is that there's an opportunity to be managing your risk and your position size during this change that they're having and robotaxi, and then Optimus is really, I think, going to be coming on. And there's just going to be periods of time where the emotion just gets way too high, and you're going to want to trim. Most Tesla errors that we meet haven't done a great job of trimming Tesla when things have gotten overheated. So they don't really have the ammunition to buy when Tesla inevitably drops, 30 to 60% off of a high. So that's something that Matt and I focus on.
Okay. All right. Good. I think that's some good advice to end on. Was that investment advice or was that just lifetime wisdom?
No, that's just something we help people do at rebellionaire.com. You can go to the website. We've redesigned it and see a little more what we do. And then if you're interested in getting our help, you can submit your form. Our service though is done for you, so we're not brokers. We don't recommend stuff. We just handle it for you. Um, uh, yeah. So like it's what's called discretionary. So it's our discretion when to make changes. So
Oh,
when we do cover calls, we decide each week whether or not we're doing cover calls that week. So we don't call you up and say, "Hey, here's the call we're selling. Here's the premium. Do you want to do it or not?" We just do it for you. Also, when we trim the Teslaonaires we work with, they give us permission to trim it where we think is like a good time in the emotions of the market to trim. Because again, like whenever whenever the stock's doing well, we all feel a bit of FOMO, no
yes.
matter how professional or analytical we are.
Or.
We think there's a reason why it should go higher because, oh, well, the stock's going up. The public's finally getting it. They really love me now. But uh, it's often the case where it settles back.
It's
And
because you
I just
trimmed.
think there's going to be
Because you
these
trimmed. It's
opportunities.
why it settled back. It's because you trimmed.
Yeah,
If you never trimmed, it would never settle. I'm playing with you.
yeah.
All right, Senor. As always, great having you on. Appreciate you coming and helping us figure all this stuff out. And we'll see you again next Thursday. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.